So in this video, we will continue the beginner's guide to Pygame Zero in the Python language. So if you're just starting with this video, you want to go to github.com, Programming Rainbow, Beginner's Guide to Pygame Zero, and you want to clone that repository, move inside the directory, and if you are just starting from this video, you'll want to grab the code that you'll find in the video 1 folder, right here, the main.py, and you want to copy that into the top level directory. And that is where we will start off with on this video. So I just want to show you where we left off with. So we have created a window. We can open and close it. We can even close it with the escape key. And we can change the color with the spacebar to get a random background color behind our background image. And we are displaying a background image. So we're loading a string here. We're setting a default color here that in a variable. And then here we are filling with whatever, initially it's that default color, and then later on it gets changed to a random color. And we are splitting an image just using the string and the position of X and Y to 0. And we are using the space bar to change that random color. Down here, Pygame Zero automatically picks up the draw, and we're telling it to run our game draw, and it automatically picks up the update. We're telling it to run our game update. And it automatically picks up the on key down, where we're checking those two. So let's just show what that looks like real quick. So I'm just running it with Python. And if I press the space bar, we're changing the background color. Okay, and we left it to open window. Should have actually been open, close, background, and colors, but because we did more than I expected in the last video. So we'll just change that here. We'll say open, close, background, colors. Okay. And we have open, close, background, colors. So in this video, we will be learning how to load a TrueType font, and we get to choose which font we want to use. We will choose the color of the font, we'll choose the size of the font, we'll choose what text, and then we're actually going to move it around the screen and do a little collision detection with the sides of the screen. So that is what we're doing in this video. So let's look at the documentation, and this is going to be part of the screen object. So we have the built-in objects. If you're on the Pygame Zero page, the two big ones that you'll probably look at, one this first page here that just has basic information, but you also look at event hooks and built-in objects. So in built-in objects, I have it opened over here. There is the screen object right here, screen, and this allows us to clear the screen, to fill the screen with a color, to blit an image on the screen. And another thing we can do is actually draw text onto the screen. So this is part of the screen object. And there is actually more information here. It says it's a very rich API. And so I've actually opened up this link right here over here to look at it even more. And there's a whole bunch of examples, and you can kind of mix and match a bunch of things from here. So what we are going to be interested in is using our own font. It'll have a font for us by default, which I believe is Free Sans Bold. But we are actually going to be loading our own font, which funnily enough will be Free Sans Bold. But showing you how to do it will mean you can just change to whatever font you want to use. But we will be using Free Sans Bold. So this right here, there's a whole bunch of examples. So we have the text that we want to display. We have where we want to display it. And it doesn't mention it anywhere here, but this is actually a rect. Like this is a tuple, but we can just put a rect here. And this will be the top left-hand corner. So it's saying the top left-hand corner of your text will be displayed at the screen's 50 and the for X of the screen, and the Y's 30. So if we went all the way to the edge of the screen, say if this is the game screen, and we went in 50, we went down 30, so we're in 50 on the X and down 30 on the Y, this will be the top corner of our text. So imagine that this is our text Pygame Zero here. Imagine this would be 50 in from the left of the screen, and this would be 30 down from the top. And that would be this top corner. So that's what's going on here. So we can actually put a rectangle here. We could put numbers in here like it says, and we can also say it's top right here, but by default it's top left, which is our origin, top left. So we are going to use that, and we're just going to use a rectangle right there. We'll save our text in a variable. We'll save the rectangle in a variable. We'll save our color in a variable, and we've already seen how to do colors. We can just put them in a tuple that has RGB. And we can also, let's see what other ones we have here. I'm just seeing if it's mentioned about the font. Oops. Font name? Yeah, a font name. So we can put our font name here too. And we are going to do that. And we can also put the font size. And with some of these, the color, font name, and font size, we do need to say color equals, and the font color, font name equals, and font size equals. So we are going to do that. So you can see that there's many different options here, and I believe you can even do bubble text and everything else. We're just going to use those ones. We're going to pick our font, pick our color, pick our size, pick our text. We're going to draw it to the screen, and then we're going to move it around the screen. And we can't actually get a rectangle from our font that we create, but we can kind of make one. We'll make a rectangle and we'll set it. You'll see how we're going to do that. It's not built into Pygame Zero. It's a little bit frustrating, but we can work around that. And here's talking more about the font name and font size. So again, that's our text. That would be our X and Y, or we could put a rect there, a rectangle. We have our font name and we have our font size. So that's most of what we want. Okay, so let's kind of start piecing this together. So I'm going to be adding some variables up in the game class. So we have right now, we have our background image and our screen color. So below that, I'm going to set some font variables. So I'm going to say self.font size. This is just a variable name I'm choosing. That's descriptive. And I'm going to put 80. And let's see, I'm not 100% sure if this is a pixel size or a font size. This is a pixel size. This isn't a point size. Okay? So there is a difference between pixel size and point size, but now you know it is pixel size. Oops. So that gives us a variable holding our size. We'll do a color. We've already seen color in Pygame Zero. Color is simply a tuple. If you don't know what a tuple is, this is a tuple in parentheses. It's a tuple and it's got 3 numbers in it. This is the first number is the red channel, the second number is the green channel, the third number is the blue channel, and these are all 0 to 255. So you can make your color up, which is like 16 million colors or something like that. You can create any one of those 16 million colors by just changing each one of these 3 channels from 0 to 255. We're going to use a white text, so that's going to be 255 for each of the channels. But you can choose whatever color you like. So 255, 255, and 255. That's just a white color. So it's just a tuple that's white. It's just, when I say tuple, it's just 3 numbers. It's not specific of a specific type or anything. It's just a tuple with 3 numbers in it. And I'm going to give it a name, font name. Yeah. So this is going to be font name. And this is actually going to be the font here. So let's look at our font that we have in the fonts folder. And Pygame Zero is going to look for the font that you give it in the fonts folder. Pygame Zero, to make things simpler for you, looks for images already in the images folder. So you don't need to give it a relative path to images. It looks for music in the music folder. It looks for sounds in the sounds folder. So you will want these folders named with these names. These are not random names. These are names that Pygame Zero is looking for. So images with all lowercase letters is where it's going to look for images. Music, all lowercase, is where it's going to look for music files. Sounds, it was where it's looking for sound effects. And fonts is where it's going to look for fonts. So besides the icon up to here that takes the whole path, you'll notice that background, it just says background. It doesn't say images, background, PNG. It just says background. And we're going to see that with the music, the sound, everything else. So You will need to make sure that you're using fonts, images, music, and sounds if you're making a game with Pygame Zero. So it is looking for a font in there, and I don't think that you need to put TTF, but in my notes I do have TTF, so we can try it either way. For now I'm going to put TTF, but we can come back later and remove it. So I'm using Free Sans Bold, and I put .ttf, but again we'll try that later and see if that's optional. Okay, so these are going to be for the font. Now I'm going to set some variables up for the text. So I'm kind of, in my mind, I'm thinking these are variables that are describing the font. Now, I know they're still dealing with the same thing, but now I've got variables describing the text I want. So this is self.text, and this will just be a string of what text I want to be displayed. So I'm going to say 0, as in Pygame Zero, and that will be my text. Okay, so we've set up some variables here. Let's look back at what we need to call. So to draw text, we have screen, and then it's going to be .draw .text, and then all those different kinds of options that we have in here. So we have screen, draw, text, and then we have different options. So let's do that. So under this right here, and I'm going to start writing it exactly the way the ones are above. So it's because I already know that I'm going to start out with a line, and then it's going to switch it to this 3-line version, and I'm going to need to move this. So I'm just going to do it this way from the beginning. So it's screen, draw, and text. I'm going to open the parentheses on this. I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to grab this right away because it's a screen. I'm already going to get, and you already see that I got it. So I'm just yanking that above to get it to ignore these and doing that. There we go. Oh, it reformatted it for me. Anyway, we'll get there. Yeah, it's going to complain again, but I'll just keep going. So the very first thing we want is the text that we're drawing. All of the versions puts the text first. So text, rectangle, and then other options. And the other options are named options. So the text, we already have it, is self text. So that's what we got, yeah? And then I'm just going to drop these downwards so they don't draw too long. And my formatter may do this automatically as well. But if you're in VS Code, if it formats these slightly differently, don't worry about that. It's okay. When you save it, if it's auto formatting for you, just go with whatever it's using. So we have self dot. Oh, sorry, I did not create a rect yet for this. So what we could do is we could just say 0, 0 in a tuple. We will be making a rect for this, but right now we'll just put 0, 0, just like the documentation. So 0, 0 will put the text in the very top left-hand corner of the screen. And a comma on that one. And then I have the color. And my color is font color right there. So on these, I need to specify the name. So if we look up here, color, I need to actually say color equals, and then I can use the variable. So color equals, and then we'll say self.font color. And we need a font name. We look again. I don't think it matters what order these are in, these named ones. But I'm just going to do it so right down here we have our rect, we have our font name and our font size. And we already have the color from up here. So we're going to go with font name. And this will be self.font name. And we have font size. Okay. And I just have that tuple there. Now I need to move this, of course. I'm going to cut that. Okay, so this should be drawing text now on the screen. Let's give that a go and see where we're at. Okay, it says 0 right up here in the left-hand corner. Okay, so again, we use 0, 0, which is actually 0, 0 for the screen. The origin of this is the top left of the text, but the 0, 0 is saying the top left-hand corner of the text, it needs to be in the top left-hand corner of the screen. If we use something else like, let's say 300, and then let's say 20, so it's going to be 300 in from the left and 20 down. This is still talking about the top left-hand corner of the text. See, there it is. 300 in, and that's this top left-hand corner right here that we're talking about. Now we could give it a name. We could say bottom right or left or all that, but I'm just gonna, since the default is the top left-hand corner, that's what I'm gonna work with. And I actually want to make a variable for that rect. I'll just call it rect. And the reason why I haven't done it yet is because there's no actual way to get a rect. You know, like we're telling it to just draw it on the fly. It may be internally holding this image, but there's no way to say, hey, what's that surface that you're using to draw this text on? And can I get the rectangle of that? Can I get the width and height? So there isn't a built-in way in Pygame Zero to do that. In Pygame and in every other one you can, but not Zero. So we can get the height of it. That's fine. But getting the width of it is a little bit trickier. So I have a little bit of a workaround. Let's just check it out. So we have self.text rect. And we're going to say that equals, and this is a built-in rect. So what I'm doing here is this built-in thing is a rect, and it has an x and a y, a width and height, but it has all these other methods that we can use on a rectangle. That is it's documented down here. Mm-hmm. You can say like top left, top. Oh, so it's just pointing us to the Pygame rect, not Pygame Zero. So this is Pygame. And we have all these things. We can have the left, the top, the middle, the bottom, where is it? We have all these options available. When we have a rect, we can call out any of these, and it's going to figure it out for us. So Pygame Zero is just using the Pygame implementation of rectangle that they call rect, and that's fine. We're by default just using the top left. So what we need to do to create this rectangle is we need to give it an x and a y and a width and a height. So we're going to say this is a rect, and we need that. And now we need an x and a y and a width and height. So it's actually two tuples. The x and the y is a tuple. And I'm just going to put 0, 0. Okay. But now our width and our height is another tuple. So the width of this is kind of a question mark. Okay. So let's think about what's the height of this. Well, what is the height of this text? The height of this text is right here. We've already done it. It's 80 in pixels. So we know it's 80 tall. So we can just say self.font size. So now we just have this one left, the width. So what would the width? Well, we could say the length of our text. That's going to be how many letters are in our text. So the length of our text is 4, right? Because we have 0 here. So we could do that. We could say len self.text, and that's going to give us 4. And we can multiply this by the size, right? So we could say, well, we have 80, but we have 4 letters here. So we could say self.size font size. Okay. Okay, there we go. So I got self.font size times the length. So that's going to give us, 320. Is that right? 160, yeah, 320 because there's 4 characters there, yeah? But that's not going to be right though, because the width of a character is not the same as the height of a character. Okay, but we're kind of getting a little bit closer here. So what I did, since there's no direct way, is I just kind of took this. So this is giving me basically how tall it is if it was 4 tall instead of 4 wide. And then I'm just going to divide that by a number that you can adjust depending on what the word is you wrote. This is not going to be an exact thing, but this is going to get you in the ballpark. So I'm going to divide it by 1.5. And that's about as good as it gets, but it kind of works. You can put different words in, and and if you change your font, it's going to give you in the ballpark, and you might have to adjust this. It might be 1.6, 1.7, or 1.4. So what's going to happen here with this width, if it's off, is when we check the collision with the top, we already have our top because our origin is the top left. So our Y is always going to be the top. We're good with that. Our left is going to be the X, so we're good with that. And we test the bottom of it. Well, our height, our bottom is going to be X. The way it internally figures out what bottom is, it's going to take the top, which is Y, and it's going to add the height, which is self.font. We already know this. And it's going to give us our bottom, and it's going to be correct, and we're going to be able to check the bottom of the screen just fine. The problem is this guy right here is, how do we know what the right side of our text is? The left side is X, and then the width of our text we don't know. So we know how many characters it is, but we don't know how wide each character is. So I've taken the height of it times how many characters and then divided by 1.5. And basically, if I've divided it by too big of a number, it's going to go off the screen a little bit. And if I divide it by too small of a number or not a number at all, then it'll think it's hitting the edge when it's, say, here instead of here. So this kind of equation will get you in the ballpark. And then you just have to mess with this number a little bit. That's about the best way I could get a rectangle for this text. In Pygame, the text would go to a surface, and I would just get the width and the height of the surface. It's not important. It works on every other STL thing, but in Pygame Zero, since they're trying to be easier and more helpful to you, they've actually made it harder because you can't get basic information like what's the rectangle of that text. But this will get it. This will work good enough. Okay, so we have a rect now, so we can replace this. Where is it? We can replace this with a rect. Text rect. And since it's X and Y is 0, 0, it's going to be in the top left-hand corner again. And then we have this other problem. So Pygame Zero uses these, but the linters can't figure them out, and they think they're undefined. So there is a workaround, but also the workaround is also broken too. So let's just do the workaround. So we have from, this is what it's told to, let's see if it has it in the documentation. Okay, so it talks about Flake 8. This is talking about the built-ins for Flake 8. And funny enough, this doesn't work all the way. And here's PyFlakes. Here's another one on Windows. This is kind of trying to work around the problems that they have with this module. I thought it was on here, but you don't have to do it this way. You can also declare it in the thing, and it's documented somewhere. It's going to be on his GitHub. So there's different suggestions from PG Zero import actor. So we're going to have to import like rect and stuff. This goes on and on. This goes back years, and it's never fixed, obviously. But it'll also say screen, like this doesn't work here. This is nonsense. This doesn't work. The screen is always a problem, and you just can't fix it, which is why we have all these this nonsense right here. The screen is constantly a problem. The other ones you can, where was I writing it? Right here. From the other ones, you can tell it that you're using these different things that they're declared there. But the problem is simply using this thing is also broken. So we'll say pg 0 dot built-ins and then import. Now we don't need to import these. It will work. Python will work, but the linters don't like this because it's done wrong. So it does physically work, like as of when they made it, but the linters are like, no. So we need to put rect here, right? So we could still use rect, but it's just the linters don't know about rect. But look at this. Oh, this is also a problem. So rect it's not complaining about rect anymore. See, I fixed rect. Watch this. Okay. so rect is a problem, right? So the way to fix it, they've said, is to do this. But look at this. Now I got an error and a warning, which is cannot find implementation. We've seen this before. This is annoying. And a warning. So yeah. So we also need to tell it to stop complaining about this one as well. So we're going to use the same one here. And again, they'll say to put screen in here, and that does not work. It never worked. I don't know why they suggested doing that. But it goes back years, and it's not going to be fixed. We have to do all this just so we can use rect down here, which is already available to us. We don't really have a problem using rect, but that's just to make the linters, for VS Code and, just anything that you're using to work rect. So, yeah, we have the rect now. We sort of are populating the rect with a workaround. And now we can kind of use this rect and move it around. So let's just see the rect working. And I didn't do it right. Okay, we made a mistake. Okay, so what did we do here? Line 59, game. No, I don't think there's a problem there. There's probably a problem here. So there's some issue here. So let's go look at that closer. Of self.text, and self.text is, oh, okay, well, hold on. Self.text is down here. This should be above. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to move this. Because I'm referencing it, but it's not even there. Okay. Oops. Okay. Let's see if that was the issue. No, that was not the issue. Okay, cool. Okay, so this X and the Y, it's not having it. Too many values unpacked. Okay, cool. I think what I need to do, sorry, this rect, I'm not using the whole rect. I want to use the top left because it just wants a tuple of X and Y, whereas the rect is two tuples. So sorry about that. That's my fault. So we have this rect here, right? And it has a tuple here, X and Y, and it has a tuple here from here to here. That is the width and the height. Okay. So this is two tuples in a rect, and what it's looking for is a single tuple. So I had 0, 0 here, or later on it was 320. But since I've put this rect here, it's seeing two tuples, not one tuple. So what we can do, and we know that we are dealing with the top left-hand corner of the image. So we know we are trying to deal with the top left-hand corner of our image. So to get the top left-hand corner of a rectangle, we can just say top left. That is one of the built-in things of rectangle right here. We have the X and the Y, but we can also say top left, which is going to give us our top left X and Y of our rectangle. So that's what I'm going to do. Where this rectangle is right here, I'm going to say dot top left. There we go. So now we're back there where it was, but now we have a rectangle and we can move this rectangle around. And since we have this rectangle, we can start doing collision detection with the top left and all that pretty easily. So what can we do? Well, I want to run a method on this game that updates the text. So this method will be called update text. And I'm just going to put it out underneath this rand color right here. And I actually want to make a couple more variables. I want a velocity. I actually want a velocity. I want an x velocity and a y velocity to manipulate this rectangle. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to make a couple more variables. I'm going to say self.text vel for velocity equals 3. Whoops, that's not 3. Then I'm going to say self.text xvel for x velocity text vel. So I'm going to do the same for self.text. So basically, I want to be able to update my x position by x velocity and my y position by y velocity. But sometimes I want this x velocity to be positive, and sometimes I want it to be negative, depending on what direction I'm moving. And the same with the y. So basically, this is holding my actual velocity, and this is separately holding a variable that can be positive or negative, this velocity. So that will allow me to manipulate the x and the y right here, this number here, the x, and this number y here with the velocity. So down here, I want to update the x position by the x velocity and the y position by the y velocity. So self.textRect.x, and I'm just going to increment it, plus equals self.text, but not velocity, I want x velocity. And I'm going to do the same for the y. Okay. Now, so I have this method set up. Now I need to call it. So what I want to do is I want this to be called every frame, and that's going to be in the update. So if I go up in here, update, I'm just going to call it directly, which is self.update text. Okay. And this gets called automatically by Pygame down here. So Pygame automatically every frame calls this, which this is calling game update, and game update is calling its own update text. So we should see the text moving toward from the right to the left and from the top to the bottom. So it should be moving diagonally down to the bottom right of the screen. And it's going to keep going right off the screen. Okay, that's pretty simple. So now let's start checking for bounds. So I'm going to check if it's moving to the left. I'm just going to check to see if well, I can check the right. It doesn't really matter. So I'll check the left. And I can say self.text rect. Now I can say X, or I could say left. Doesn't really matter. It's going to be the same. Now, if I say it's less than 0, so the left is the left side of my text. If my left side of my text is going down, 0 is all the way here. So if it's gone less than 0, it's going off the screen. So I can say that means my x velocity was already in a negative, and if I'm breaching this side, I want to start going into the positive direction. So my x velocity needs to be a positive version. I'm going to say self.text x velocity equals self.text velocity, because velocity is positive. So I know this is 3, so I'm setting this to 3, and it'll start moving in a positive direction. I'm going to check the right-hand side. So I can say self.text rect.right. And if that is bigger than width, which is up here, 800 width, that's bigger than width, I can tell it to be a negative version. So self.text x velocity is going to be equal to negative self.text velocity. Okay? So let's disable this right here. So we're just moving in an x direction, and let's see if that works. Oops. So keep an eye on the 0. The 0 doesn't actually hit the wall here. That means my math to kind of guess where the right side of this text was is not correct. Go down here. So I'm kind of wondering about this right here. Just want to try this real quick. Oh, that still works. Okay. Let's just misspell it, just to make sure. I'm just intentionally misspelling it. Okay, so we know that it is using that. You know, the documentation didn't say we needed the .ttf, so we don't actually need that. Yeah. So you can just follow the documentation on that. And so with this math right here, it's a bit off. So let's try 1.6. We're going to divide it by a slightly bigger number, so our width is going to be smaller now. Now that's still not right. Let's just be extreme with it. I just want to show it working the other way. Okay, so 1.6 was not good enough, but now you see that it's digging in a little bit. It's digging in, it's going too far. So it's probably like 1.8 or something like that. Basically, it's the ratio of how wide the letters are versus how tall they are. So if you put in different words, it should still kind of work if you kind of dial in. So that's good enough for me. I'm going to leave it at 1.8. Okay, so we have the X working, so the Y is going to be the exact same story. So I'm just going to duplicate this right here. I'm going to yank it, and I'm going to paste it. And we'll just take this left, and the left is going to be top. Okay? And this is going to be Y. And the right is going to be the bottom. And this is going to be height. And this will be Y as well. And that should give us bouncing off all of the walls. Yeah, that looks like it's working pretty good. We can still change the background color. All that is working perfectly. Basically, all the things like actor, rect, all the capitalized things that you add in, you don't have to do this. This right here does not make the program not work. Okay? If I do this and I save it, it will still run. See? It's purely for your editor to not complain about, where is it? Right here. It's complaining here, you know. So this is not making the program work. It's making PyWrite, PyLint, PyFlakes, all these things work correctly. And even this is kind of, it's just the way that the person made this module, it's all kind of messed up. So we're going to keep adding to this as we do. So we did add this from Pygame Zero built-ins. We're importing rect. That's, again, just for our linters. And we still need to put this here because it'll complain just like it did up here. Now we've added a bunch of variables here. We have a font size, which is 80. We have a font color, which is just white, 255s. It's white. We have a font name, which is, it's looking for it in the fonts folder, and that's the name. You don't need to. It's optional to put the TTF in. The actual text we want is the 0, and this needs to be above the rect, because like you saw with the error I was getting, because I'm referencing, a variable that is not declared yet, so it's not understanding what I'm doing. All the variables that are used here need to be above it. So the font size is up here, the self text is here, and that's font size again. So right here, I am creating 3 variables because what I really want to do is I want to, this is kind of my constant, the velocity, and this X and Y are actually changing if they need to move to the left or move to the right each frame. So that's my velocity moving left or right or up or down. And the way that we're drawing the text is with the screen.draw.text. And first we're adding our text in, our string. And then we're adding in we're using our rect, but it needs a tuple. So we're using the top left-hand corner of our rect. That's the default, is using the top left-hand by default anyway. And then we're having our named variables here. This one color equals, and this is the color variable we've created. Font name equals, and the font name variable we've created. And font size equals, and the font size variable we've created. So that is drawing our font, but we've created a new method down here as well in our game class that is moving it's incrementing the X by the X velocity every frame. And this is moving 3 pixels every frame, and we're getting 60 frames a second. So it's moving about 180 pixels to the left and 180 pixels down. It's not actually 180 pixels. It's going to be like, since it's moving diagonal, it's probably like 250 or something like that. I don't know the exact number, but it's because it's moving diagonally. And then we're also checking to see, and I'm putting an if and an else when I'm doing the left and the right checks, because I don't need to check the right. If I've already checked the left and the left triggered, that means I'm definitely not on the right hand side. So it's a tiny optimization, but you could just run ifs on each of these. But I'm checking if the left is less than 0, then we need to move in the direction towards the right, which is a positive direction. If the right side has moved past the width of the screen, I need to move in the left direction. So I need to be moving, my velocity needs to be a negative number. So I'm setting this X velocity to a negative. And I'm doing the exact same thing with the Y, getting the top of it for 0 and making sure the Y velocity is positive. And if I'm checking the bottom, I'm checking against the height, and now the Y velocity is negative. So that update is actually being called by my class member update, my class method, that's update. And that update, the class method update, is already being called by the built-in update automatically by Pygame. So that is how you draw text, how you move it around the screen, how you can check the borders if it's bouncing. Let's change this up here to moving text. And that should be it for that. I hope that was educational. So again, thanks for watching, and bye.